Round 2 of the NFL playoffs begin on Saturday, which is considered the best weekend of football for the entire season. We'll take a look back at last week's wildcard games and preview all 4 divisional round playoff games with in-depth analysis, the latest trends, injury updates, odds and picks, as OFN NFL preview with Tony Mejia on the Ourlads Football Radio Network starts now. Thanks for tuning in to OFN NFL preview for divisional weekend in the NFL with Tony Mejia, independent sports columnist and exclusive handicapper at VegasInsider.com for this Friday, January 12th, 2018. So, Tony, hey, how about that Lonzo Ball?
Lonzo's pretty good. His brothers are years away, and nobody should be covering his dad.
Isn't it hilarious?
It's not being funny.
Yeah,
it's not hilarious.
It's not hilarious anymore. Bad. Okay, yeah. Well, that's okay because we wouldn't talk about even if we had a show 5 days a week, for 3 hours a day, we wouldn't talk about that at all. So I hope everybody understands. And look, if they listen to this show, I think they get that we are definitely. I was watching some of the NFL. I don't know if you watch. Do you ever watch NFL live on ESPN sometimes?
Yeah, I like the show. I mean, so I like a lot of ESPN shows. There are some.
They have that really though goofy like beginning. What is it on Fridays when they introduce the analysts?
They do the hat game or something like that, a helmet game.
They do a helmet game? What is that?
Yeah, I've seen it. I mean, I'm not sure if it's a Friday thing, but I know they put hats on teams that they like.
You mean like Corso does?
Yeah, but not with the helmet hat. I mean, not with a mascot head, but like for instance, Schefter in his studio in his home has a mini Rams helmet. I've seen him put on his head.
Okay, I mean that's all right. That's all right. I mean the introductions though they do like on and now. Teddy Bruschi.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Oh well, you don't want to. It's sort of like guys that are, you know what it is? It's like guys that are kind of like they're jonesing for their old lives, and so yeah. And then for the guys that are the hosts of the show, it's like, hey, anything for me to fit in with these former players, I kind of feel cool. So being a nerdy broadcaster. But anyway, that's them. This is us. We've got 4 games to preview for what again could very well be everybody's favorite weekend in the NFL for the season. Okay, I can dig that definitely. Last week we talked about how that was also a big weekend because you can add in the college football playoff championship game or the what was that really called last week? That wasn't really the championship game. What was that?
National runner-up game.
Runner-up game. There you go. Runner-up game. And to tell you the truth, after looking at the game, I think that was pretty. That you were right on. I was, I think in years past, if you really think about it, like when say Utah went undefeated and beat Alabama that year, and those, Boise State. We were like, oh yeah, we want to see them again. But we realistically were like, yeah, but okay, it would be nice to see, but do we really think they stand a chance to win the game? Maybe 1 out of 10. Now, really? The way that these kids have, I think what we're seeing in college and pro, and I don't think this is a good thing. I think what we're seeing is that for the past, and I've said this a lot, I say this all the time right around the draft, for the last several years, we have had so many underclassmen leave over the last 5 or 6 years. It's catching up to both college football and the NFL. So now in the NFL, we had that nice little run that we were getting all sorts of crazy winners, winning the Super Bowl. The number 1 seed wouldn't even win the Super Bowl for like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years. Now, the last 4 years or so, every number 1 seed's winning a Super Bowl, and Alabama keeps winning the Super Bowl. And I don't think it's a coincidence. What you're seeing is the watered down effect from the players that are leaving early in college. So the game itself, the talent itself just isn't there. And then we're seeing the same thing because the kids you're seeing a combination of the fact that the kids are being brought up too soon, especially the quarterbacks. Most importantly, they're just not groomed properly. And we all know how important it is to have these quarterbacks play at an elite level if you're going to have good quality NFL play. And then, of course, everything we also talked about the NFL, which is weak, which I'm glad John Gruden tossed in his press conference about how you just don't have any time to practice with these guys. So that kind of combination is unfortunately, I think it's killing both college football and the NFL. It's still fun. I love it. We love it. But it could be a lot better.
Well, NFL-wise, I mean, I think you hit it on the head with the quarterback thing. That's what decides these games. But as far as level of play, what I think it's done is defensive players and some skilled players, the better ones are now much younger than they used to be.
True.
Because of raw talent. You know, like you got impact players on the defense. I mean, look at the Jaguars on the defensive end that you know shine either at Alabama or on the big stage, and they get it faster. I mean, we're talking this weekend about you know 2 UCLA linebackers that were thrust in there, and Anthony Barr and Miles Jack that play such key roles, and you know they learned and then we're ready to go because you know it doesn't pay to play in college anymore. But you know, and so that's why you have your factories and such. But you know, I think it makes the NFL product worse only because they come in at a higher skill level than quarterbacks can get to within that time span, and that's why you see a lot of the retread champions these days.
Yeah, because that's the thing you're looking at. You kind of get the feeling with the quarterbacks that are coming in this draft class that, you know, if they're thrown to the wolves, which more than likely they're going to, especially a guy like Sam Darnold, it's like, come on, man. I mean, there's no way Sam Darnold should be turning pro. But but nowadays there's no reason for him not to. But realistically, he shouldn't be. There's no way he should be. He's ready. And then what happens if he does all of a sudden get the keys to the engine week 1 in 2018 with whoever he plays for? It could hold him back from really being the type of quarterback that we envision him in being. And then just take a look at the game on Monday night. I mean, we had 2 freshmen, guys who were in high school last year, dictating the national championship in college football. I mean, that's just crazy. You know?
Yeah, but it's still, you got to throw the ball. That's why, you know, Tua Tagovailoa came in and made such an impact because he has an arm. I mean, you can only win so much with Hurts and you know, your other guys like Jackson. And I think when you get to a level like that, I think you have to throw the ball. And this particular year, I think UCF would have stood a chance because Milton can throw the ball when he gets into a rhythm. He has receivers, and then you would have gotten Alabama. No, I'm not saying UCF could hang with Alabama on a field, you know, 3 years from now. I know a lot of our fans have put out a billboard in Tuscaloosa asking for a home and home. I even quipped that they'd have to get out of their contract with the Citadel, who they play, you know, next year in their annual cream puff game right before, you know, the SEC title game. But you know, the fact of the matter is that these particular teams, UCF's got guys that really could stop the run. Mike Hughes, a corner who's going to play on Sundays. They could have hung with Hurts or Tagovailoa.
Yeah, and that was my point, is that you know, after watching that game and watching Central Florida, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, if these teams do get a chance, and hopefully we will start seeing 8 teams. I get a kick out of, what did Central Florida finish 4th overall? What was it in the standings?
6th in the AP, but they got 4 first place votes.
They got 4. Okay. So, but anyway, fact is, it's just the way that the sport is right now. And I will say this. I mean, I don't know. You tell me. I mean, as a handicapper, I have to believe that there is. You always remember. You remember the biggest wins and the biggest losses. So you have to remember them. So you tell me, because I have never been a part of 2, like, sort of like back to back, because we had the Super Bowl, and then before the Super Bowl, we did have the college football championship, even though it was the next year. So the 2 biggest football games of the year, back to back, the last 2, I should say, were the college football championship and the Super Bowl from last year. So those 2 games, I have never in my entire personal life, handicapping career myself, been on the losing end of games like that back to back, ever.
But I mean, you covered those Georgia.
Well, see, as I've said before, I'm a futures guy. So it's about winning the championship game. It's about winning the Super Bowl. It's about winning the Super Bowl. It's about winning the national championship. And for me to lose both games in the way that I lost those games, and I feel really bad, of course. See, for me, it's a little bit of money and pride, but for Falcons fans and Georgia fans, imagine if you're both a Falcon fan and a Bulldog fan. I could just.
Oh, there were some of them on Twitter, and they were not liking the sympathy that was out there. I think they all just wanted to crawl in holes. But yeah, what were your thoughts when Alabama missed that field goal? That must have been, invigorating.
Yeah, it was okay, and then right after the obvious first sack, I figured okay, but I still wasn't. See, the reason why I wasn't feeling all that great was because. Maybe it was because of the Atlanta game, because I'm kind of used to these situations sometimes, and maybe it's because of the fact that I've been in sports for so long and I've never had a professional championship team I've rooted for win, so I've had a lot of disappointment, so I'm used to it. So,
gotcha.
So I can tell when something happens in a game that I all of a sudden can switch on the dime from like being into it, feeling good, and in one play where I go, oh no. And that play was when they had all the momentum and then Fromm threw the interception. Once he threw that interception, and it was 20-6 at the time? That's
right, because they could have tacked on to it. Yeah.
Once I was like, that's it. This we're in trouble. We're in big trouble now. And it happened, and that's why I never felt comfortable. Sure, it was great. I mean, I actually thought it was obviously going to make it, but I actually felt, maybe he'll miss this because this guy's been a pretty weak kicker most of the season, and we saw him miss a chippy the previous week, and we saw him miss a chippy earlier in the game. So I wasn't 100% surprised he missed it, but I just was never comfortable. One of the things about college though is what we saw at the end of that game, and that's why I kind of love college sports, because that's never going to happen in the NFL. But it happens in college where you give up a touchdown pass, a 45-yard touchdown pass in that situation. It just doesn't happen in the NFL, and that's part of the greatness of college sports, because anything can happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, now I don't know about the Atlanta Falcons because that's the first team that we're going to cover. And I will say this: I am not picking Atlanta because of I will say this: I am definitely going to avoid taking Georgia and Atlanta in futures for a while. But as far as this particular game with the Eagles, even though the Falcons came up big last week over the Rams, we did mention in our preview last week that the one thing that we had to keep an eye on was the fact that the Rams were a young group, inexperienced playoff group, coach, quarterback, Gurley, all that kind of stuff. Fan base, not exactly the type of fan base that you really want to be behind you. I mean, that's not going to lift you up in any way, shape, or form. So it was you kind of had that feeling, okay, how are they going to handle it? And they handled it in the exact worst way possible. I heard some people talking after the game about how that really didn't impact it much, and they just have no idea what they're talking about, because that game was all about inexperience for the Rams. They were stage fright. They had stage fright. Now, they did come back late in the first half. They actually almost took the lead going into the locker room, which did say something for them. But for me, it says something about the Falcons, because the Rams were so bad in that first half. They had absolute stage fright left and right, that the fact that they almost had the lead at halftime in that game, it just goes back to what we said also last week, is that the Falcons just keep kicking field goals. They keep relying on Matt Bryant, and that is going to kick you in the rear sooner or later. And I think it kicks him in the rear this week. I know a lot of people are sort of all of a sudden get a little bit more on the Falcons bandwagon. They've dropped from 30-1 to win the Super Bowl down to about 7 or 8-1. And everybody is of course dissing the Eagles, and I get that. I'm not saying they're winning the Super Bowl, but home game for the Eagles. Atlanta, dome team going on a true road game, not California. It's going to be 15 to 20 degrees during the game. You're going to get real fans at the game. So real, true road game for the Falcons against an Eagle team that everybody's counting out. They're a home dog with a number 1 seed. I think with that rushing offense, I trust Doug Peterson is going to find a way to work Foles into the flow of the game. They're not going to have to rely on him the way they rely on Wentz. I don't think they have to anyway to beat the Falcons. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Eagles in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles definitely caught a break with Atlanta going out and taking care of the Rams. With the reseeding, they get the they get the Falcons, who are more vulnerable to me than the Saints would be in this game.
True, absolutely.
For the reasons that you mentioned. Yes, I mean, just the Falcons' offense doesn't look right. Julio Jones is not 100%. They held him out of practices this week, for a reason, and although he'll play and be the X factor again, as he always is, the Eagles can certainly neutralize him, especially on what's going to be a freezing cold day where the team that probably runs the ball better wins. So certainly a better matchup.
And by the way, the Eagles, best rushing defense in the NFL, number 3 rushing offense in the NFL. Now, I know this is all mostly with Wentz. I completely get that. But the fact is, the Eagles, I think a lot of people just got this impression that the Eagles are just pass. But they can run the football. They bring in Jay Ajayi. Keep in mind, Jay Ajayi had a monster game against Atlanta when the Dolphins played him. I think he's going to be big in this game. You got Blunt. Peterson, again, I think he understands they got to run the football with Foles there, so he's had the extra week to prepare in that respect. Eagles are also have been an opportunistic defense under Schwartz. You've got the +11 ratio to a -2 ratio for Atlanta. That's how the Eagles win the football game. Make Atlanta kick more field goals. Harass Matt Ryan because he's going to have to throw the ball more because your Eagle defense is going to stuff that inconsistent, disappointing rushing attack that is going to rear its ugly head in a big game here. So just when everybody is all of a sudden going to jump on Atlanta's bandwagon, it's going to crash, and the Eagles are going to get a big win at home on Saturday. And we'll see what happens next week because that's if they win this game, it's a home game and anything can happen. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Eagles in that one plus the 3. It's a 3-point spread, right?
Yeah. The latest numbers have Atlanta at 3 throughout the board with the total at about 40.5, 41. Keep in mind there are expected to be wind gusts of about 30 miles an hour. It's going to be a very windy day, so it's really staying on schedule for both teams to avoid a pass rush. Both teams can get home on that pass rush. The Eagles have their offensive line issues. Vitai's going to play, but he's shaky even when he's 100%. And so it's going to come down to whether Matt Ryan can be great, and he has been great. Of late, he's 10 touchdowns in his last 4 playoff games. And, he at least did his part. Again, I think he's probably not comfortable with Sarkisian, and it continues to be apparent. And it's whether Foles can minimize mistakes and make plays in his second career playoff start after not really reinforcing anybody confidence-wise after taking over for Wentz.
No, look, I mean, there's no question that if Foles has the type of poor performance that we've seen from him in the last couple of games he played, that Atlanta's going to win this football game. I'm going to bet against that. I'm going to bet against the fact that he will, again, with a couple of – and he only played sparingly against the Cowboys, so it's really like for him having a few weeks off, and more importantly for Peterson to be able to game plan the best way of running this offense with Nick Foles and not having Nick Foles try to pick up the offense with Wentz led off and having that extra week off, including kind of preparing for this spot, even the week of the Cowboy game. That's given Peterson enough time to say, okay, I've got to now change this offense to make, because I've got a completely different quarterback here. And that's what I think we're going to see. We're not going to see Nick Foles trying to beat Carson Wentz. And by the way, Nick Foles in that first career playoff game, he played pretty well. 69%, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So he has playoff experience. And if he has any stats like that in this game, Eagles definitely win.
And I like Peterson Schwartz here, as the backup, taking the points, and their individual matchups coordinating this game. And then the home field will definitely play a factor. The woe is me thing could come into play, I guess, if the Eagles get down double digits early.
True.
Considering the Eagles haven't won a playoff game in their last 4.
Yes.
But
they need the lead. Yes.
Exactly. If they play from ahead, I mean.
Yes, that's big.
they could certainly it could get ugly even if there's a turnover and the Falcons don't play well because they haven't exactly been the most resilient bunch this year. So we'll see with that. I think it's just intriguing that we've been doing this all year, and we're gonna talk about a pair of rematches that mean absolutely nothing. We're talking about Jay Ajayi, who was a Dolphin half the year, and nobody being the X factor for the Eagles, and it's almost like a video game.
And by the way, in that, well, what did you think, by the way, as far as the performance of the Rams? What did you think about the game in general? Were you disappointed in anything specific regarding the Rams? Was it just okay, even though maybe you expected more, it was predictable with their inexperience?
Well, they shot themselves in the foot. So, I mean, any time that they had opportunities to claim momentum, they defeated themselves. And, credit the Falcons for walking through the door. But, yeah, I definitely had I split that because my guarantee ended up being the under on that game, which came in. But I laid the points with the Rams. I just really faded that Falcons offense. They walked through the door, and, my trepidation over a lack of ambiance at the Coliseum kind of played into that.
Well, again, I mean, anytime, I mean, you can't predict when guys, especially, are going to turn over the ball on kick returns. So that's just, especially in playoff games, you can't do that. And by the way, not only did they have the big turnovers that led to scores, but keep in mind the other big play of the game was when Alec Ogletree failed to tackle Tevin Coleman on third down when he had him in the backfield. And Coleman getting on that third and long gets away from that tackle. Falcons go down the field and score. Those are 3 scores that you give the other team because you can't make a tackle and you turn over the ball twice. That you can't do that in the playoff games.
Yeah, swing playoff games. Titans Chiefs. I mean, individual play swung that game immensely. Same thing with Rams Falcons.
All right, now the game on Sunday in the NFC, the Saints and the Vikings, and so the Saints, unfortunately, because Atlanta gets the win, goes to Philly. So the Saints now have to go to Minnesota. And sure, look, I think everybody knows that what happened week 1 in the NFL, and this means absolutely nothing. Everybody knows that, especially in the NFL nowadays, where week 1. I mean, I remember when I was talking about Saints as a sleeper, and then they went and they played that game, and the defense was terrible in the game, and I had talked up the defense as being a reason I liked them. And then what was everybody's initial reaction? Oh, it's the same old Saints. Saint defense stinks. And that's you.
That went on for a couple of weeks.
It did.
Brady lit them up, and after that,
it did. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why we can't. Week 1, week 2, week 3. You should forget it. Nobody cares about those matchups. But look, I will say this. This was not what I was expecting right away. I wasn't exactly sure. We always talk about wanting to see how teams play week to week. We could always kind of look ahead and think what we think. But I wasn't entirely impressed the way that I wanted to be if I was going to take the Saints in this spot. And look, I took Carolina, so it's not the fact that, look, they won, so you would think, well, shouldn't they oppress you? They beat you. But I actually looked at that as more of, I expected more from Carolina because they just kept kicking field goals. And they also, to me, I thought Carolina should have played better. And I thought the Saints should have played better. Drew Brees is Drew Brees. I don't know why anybody's so surprised or felt that they needed to remind everybody how great Drew Brees was. I mean, what do you don't watch Saints games? I mean, Drew Brees is awesome. Why did you have to be reminded about how great Drew Brees is? But that's the problem I have with the Saints in this game. Is Drew Brees is great, but Drew Brees is not going to be able to do it all against this defense. This defense, the Carolina's got a really good run defense, and they proved it. Minnesota has a really good run defense, so that should eliminate most of the Saints' rushing attack. But Minnesota's got a really good pass defense. Minnesota's got the best defense in football, and the Saints cannot rely on Drew Brees to light up the Vikings. I just don't see that happening. I think that's just going to be asking way too much out of Brees in this game. The Vikings, 5-point favorite in this game, 4-5, whatever it is. I think we've seen the Saints level of where they're going to play. I mean, sure, if they win this game, I feel real good about their chances of going to the Super Bowl. But I just really like this Viking team. I don't think they have played the entire season to lose the very first game that they play in the playoffs. Especially, like I said, I kind of wanted to see the Saints play a little bit better if I was going to pick them in this game.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely dodged a bullet. They're my Super Bowl rep from the NFC, so I obviously invested in them over the weekend, and they actually didn't even cover, but they did get through. So maybe they can put this behind them. It depends on how I want to look at this. From the standpoint of, I eventually expected that New Orleans would have to get through Minnesota earlier than anticipated.
Yeah.
And whether that becomes something that becomes a positive or a negative, because you can spin it both ways, and we're just going to have to find out on Sunday which way it goes, because is there going to be a little stage fright for Case Keenum in that offense? With guys really that have been untested. Maybe they could have tuned up against a weaker opponent. So I don't know. We'll see. And then obviously you have Breeze and his ability to get them done, get the job done on the road, I think is an asset in the quarterback battle here.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is Case Keenum. If Case Keenum shows any sort of signs of stage fright or anything like that, Minnesota's in trouble, because they're not going to run the football at will. Case Keenum's going to have to play a good football game. And if he doesn't, then boy, is that defense going to have to be awesome. And I'm not saying that they can't be. I just think that Minnesota, being the best defense in football, this is and here's the other thing too. Sean Payton, I don't know what Sean Payton was thinking last week, but now I've watched him coach many years. I've watched him go make a lot of.
To be specific, we're talking about at the end.
We're talking two plays.
Throwing.
Two. The 57-yard field goal or the 55-yard field goal, whatever it was. And then, yes, the obvious go for it at midfield. When you've got the lead, to do that twice and to get away with it the one time. Actually, you got away with it twice. And then to get away with it the second time when Breeze throws the interception, you gain 20 yards. That's just, you're playing with fire there, So I don't know. I mean, again, I know he's a gambler. I know he does those things. But I didn't agree with either one. And it's not like, sometimes I see coaches go for stuff and I'm like, okay, good, cool. I see that. I'm okay with that. But I just didn't agree with either one. It's sort of like the Jacksonville. And look, I know the game would have been completely different, but at the end of the third quarter in that game, kick the freaking field goal, man. Go up 6-3. If Jacksonville doesn't score a touchdown on that pass, if that guy even slightly bobbles the ball more and they don't get it, you know how criticized Marone's going to be for going for it when he could have kicked a field goal to go up 6-3? So in that game, because Buffalo can't move the football, so some of these coaches are really making some really, I give them credit. Hey, it's working. They're being gutsy. That's good for the sport. But I'm just kind of surprised about, especially Peyton. He got away with it last week.
He definitely did. I think it boils down to trusting what you trust most. Marone's decision, if it was what it was, would have been we're not going to be down here very often. Let's try to stick the dagger. And you can see it both ways in that sense. But certainly more from Marone's standpoint than Peyton. You almost said, "What are you doing?" And then it ends up that the defense you didn't want to trust ends up bailing you out. So that's good for the defense at least.
Yeah, sure.
Because the fact that it paid off ends up, being something that they can take forward into this game. And again, they got sliced up for 346 by Sam Bradford. He's not going to play. Marshawn Lattimore was in his first game, so and Ken Crawley didn't play. So
Adrian Peterson was also playing. Which is a negative.
In rushing.
Yeah, for the Saints.
Dalvin Cook ran for 127 yards for the Vikings. He's obviously been replaced by Latavius Murray, and they're an X factor. What I heard is going to play a big role in this game. Jerick McKinnon, as far as keeping the situations manageable for Keenum. And again, look, this is the matchup that you fear if you're back in the Saints like I did. And we'll just see if they're testing. I think the spread is right. Right around 4.5, 5, and you take your shot. That at least
they might cover.
Saints can pull off a backdoor cover.
Yeah, that's possible. And look, I will say this though, and I was as that game is unfolding, the Carolina game, especially when they got the ball back. Obviously, I was feeling real good about Carolina's chances, but I was saying this to myself. because of the way and I got to tell you, Cam Newton when he's on his game, and he was on his game. He was throwing laser perfect passes in a lot of spots. And, of course, a lot of his guys were letting him down, including, of course, the momentum swing in the beginning of the game where the guy drops the pass in the end zone, Clay, and then the very next play almost goes for the bomb when Carolina's defense was stuffing him at that point, and it just changed everything, and all of a sudden Carolina had to play catch-up the rest of the game. But he was playing so good. He was throwing the ball so well that I was saying to myself, with that drive, the only way I felt that they were going to get stopped was if he got sacked on any down, and they had a 3rd and 17. And that's basically what happened when he got that call against him. Because I just think he was just going too well that he was going to be able to complete at least one pass in 4 downs within 10 yards. I just thought that the only way he was going to get stopped was if he got sacked. And that's what happened. And I would have felt really, really good about Carolina's chances if they would have pulled that out because of the way Cam Newton was playing. And you know what? He threw one up there that Devin Funchess should have caught. I mean, that was, to me, a big choke job try catch. When I see receivers, like, lean over and they kind of stretch for something, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, look where the ball is, get the freaking defender out of the way, and go catch the ball. Why are you looking like you don't even want anything to do with the ball? But that's the problem with the Panthers all season. They don't have good receivers.
Do I hear you sneakily admitting that maybe missing Calvin Benjamin and trading him away was a mistake?
No, I won't say that because they did get to the Super Bowl without him. I will. You know who was the guy they missed? Ted Ginn.
Oh, well, Ginn's making plays on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's the guy they missed. That's the guy. Because I'm not saying he's a star. He's not a star.
What's that?
He's not a star, but on that team, he would have been like, a very big part of their offense.
Yeah, he's become a ton more dependable, and yeah, I mean, certainly an asset for New Orleans. I think the Saints stop the run. They've got a shot here, so it just depends on whether that defense shows up and how tough that Vikings defense makes it on Breeze and the Saints offense. So really, to me, this is the best game of the weekend.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I agree. All right. Now let's go on to the AFC games, and starting first of all with the Saturday night game, Tennessee beats Kansas City, and another game where another situation. I'm listening to some of these analysts talk about this game, and they're giving their reasons why Kansas City lost. Look, I mean, I've watched enough football games. I've watched enough Kansas City games. If there's one reason and one reason only that Kansas City lost that football game, Travis Kelce went out. That's it. I don't want to hear anything else. Sure, you can say, well, yeah, it's like a lot. And look, I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to say that there aren't factors of how a team wins a game, and you got to make plays, and you got to do this, and if you still did that, if he doesn't come out of the game, they win the game. Matter of fact, if he doesn't come out of the game, they destroy that team. But that's the problem with the Chiefs. They're so fragile.
Well, I mean, look, from what happened, a lot of things blew up in their face. If let's play the feud on reasons they lost, bam, you just got control of the board because you get the number one answer. But there's other reasons, and there was, you can go 5-6 deep on them. Andy Reid and his coaching and certain things that just plumb bad luck of Mariota catching his own touchdown pass, bad officiating.
That was terrible. What kind of a call?
So, look,
who says?
There were other reasons.
Have you ever heard that call before? Have you ever heard that call before?
Oh, no. I mean, like, I'm watching the game saying, well, at least it looks like I'll get my over because I took points with Tennessee and then the over.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, look, the game was ridiculous, and then the under came in by a point. But the Titans covered. Just a weird game. Strange way to get it going, and then Triplett retires the next day because he was calling. He's incompetent now, and it's amazing that these games are decided like this.
It is, but that's it. But that's
why it's entertainment.
And Candace, that's the thing, though. I mean, that's the other. That's why when people see, that's why I know some people are like, this is why I like trends, because I'm sorry, but I do not believe it's a coincidence that Kansas City keeps losing home playoff games. I think when you're a team and you're constantly being reminded of it, because that's what happens. These guys are constantly talk radio, in the newspaper, everywhere you go, you are being reminded about not winning home playoff games. And it's a factor. Is it the reason? No, it's not the number one reason. Is it a factor? Absolutely, because in the back of their minds, here we go again. We can't, what's going on? We can't win a home playoff game. There's no confidence here. And especially, you know, under the same staff and team and so forth and so on. But that, yeah, I mean, the call of the player, what was it? His momentum? What is that call again? His momentum was stopped, which I've never heard in my life for a quarterback getting sacked. So, yeah.
I mean they can spin it any way you want, but now, especially with so many people watching, you know, it is what it is, especially with Twitter having a voice every game. I mean, we know what we know. It's very clear, but you can spin it any way you want, NFL.
And look, give credit to Tennessee because it wound up working out for them where they were able to apply their physical game against the Chiefs, and I will say, you know, and it just came. It was like like an avalanche coming down against the Chiefs. They just could not stop that momentum and that physicality in that second half. Even though, and one of the things that really hurt them, and I think hurt them more than Derrick Henry, was when Marcus Mariota was able to get some first downs. He was able to pick up some big first downs with his legs, and that was the thing that you just could not allow if you were the Chiefs. You're going to route Derrick Henry, that's fine. Don't also, because Marcus Mariota is not going to throw the football all over you, so don't let him pick up first downs. Remember, he picked up that one big first down. I don't know who it was, some linebacker or safety or something like that. I'm like going, what in the world kind of tackle is that? That's a quarterback, for crying out loud. Knock him on his ass. I mean, what are you doing? So the tackling in this league sometimes you shake your head at these guys.
Well, but to segue into this week, I mean, that's exactly how the Titans are going to hang around. If they're going to. It's got to be Mariota and his legs and making plays, and that's the way they basically got all their scoring plays in last week. And it's going to be a test of this Patriots defense, whether they can stay disciplined and you know, quarterbacks that can run have had an effect against the Patriots. So it could get interesting, especially weather-wise. You know,
that's
that
the
could
thing.
play against Brady.
That's the thing. Being 10 to 15 degrees is going to be a huge asset. You would think for Tennessee, being a physical team, if they can put together a 7, like the Bills. I remember in that game in Foxborough had that 7-8 minute drive. That's what the Titans need. They need a 7-8 minute drive in the beginning of the game at some point to keep Brady on the sideline, march down the field, punch it in for a touchdown, and make sure that you're hanging with the Patriots going into the late third quarter, early fourth, so you can also wear them down. See, I don't see any of that happening, but that's what you have to do.
Right.
Because this is, to me, a complete mismatch. It's a complete coaching mismatch. You know, Belichick can run circles against Malarkey. Malarkey 0-6 against the Patriots all time. That's not a coincidence. You've got the fact that you as you mentioned, the weather, because Titans defense is their asset. And even though Deion Lewis has been doing a really good job, and I know some of these other running backs are getting healthier, but if you're the Patriots, keep those other guys on the sideline unless you want to bring in Gillespie in the 5 or 10 yard line. Deion Lewis is the best running back on that team. Keep him on the field. He can make guys miss. But the Patriots are not really going to be able to run the football, nor should they have to anyway. You beat the Titans by passing the football, but with the weather conditions being the way that they are, is that going to be a big issue? We'll see. So
that's the key. To me, you can't bet this game until it's an 8:15 kickoff. So right around 4, you know, dial up your AccuWeather and call people, and if you have people in Mass that you can call and say, all right, what's the scoop? Because it's going to pour in the morning. That's the word. It'll be one of those nasty days that you don't want to leave the house. Who knows how long it's going to rain? Wind speeds are going to be in the 20s with gusts in the 30s. So it's going to be disgusting, but it's supposed to actually clear up at night. Now, whether it clears up or not, to me, is how you make this bet, how you win this bet, whether the Titans can hang or not. Because, you know, as you said, Patriots, you're going to win this game by putting it all on Brady. If it's raining, if there's wind gusts, that's going to be more troublesome than if it's clear and just cold.
Sure.
Because that's the current forecast. It's just going to be cold, 15 degrees. But other than that, all that muck out of the picture. So that obviously helps the Patriots. If it's raining, then you get Marcus Mariota extending plays. Brady maybe loses rhythm because he's on the sideline for a 9-minute drive that ends up in a Titans field goal because they can't punch it in. But Derrick Henry punishing your defense, you extend the game. All of a sudden, it's when you're in the fourth quarter and potentially tougher. But no, I'm in agreement. The Patriots are moving on from this game up.
Yeah, no, it's a 13.5-point spread right around there. Obviously, I mean, I don't care about the spread. I've said that many times, and I don't care about that in this game with the Patriots. I'll take the Patriots. It's 13.5, 14. I'll take them. I know anyway that they're not also the type of team that even if it's early fourth quarter and they got a 10-point lead, they're not sitting on the ball anyway. They're going to run their game plan until there's 2 seconds left in the game. So that's just the way they've always been, and that's the way they'll be. So I don't care about the point spread. If they have to backdoor cover themselves, then if you want to call it that, then they can do that. So I'm okay with giving up those points. And this is just like the game we talked about last week. If Tennessee, it worked for Tennessee, but there were issues that you're not going to see this week. So if Tennessee does not get off to a good start again this week, they're going to get annihilated. So they have to get off to a good start. All right.
Yeah, well, you if you're the Titans, you even hang around, hope the weather's in your on your side, and then you need to make sure that Brady's first drive does not result in points, because then he goes to the sideline, starts huffing and puffing, and then all of a sudden your defense is out on the field trying to contain Derrick Henry for what the Titans hope will be 30 carries on the afternoon, because that means they kept the ball.
All right. And by the way, I do believe, because it's too obvious to me, that I believe Dorsey is going to get Alex Smith, bring him over to Cleveland. And I think if he does that, I don't think he's going to take a quarterback with the first 2 picks. That's my early prediction.
That's cool. I think right now we see a lot of these dominoes falling in terms of the early coaching hires and then coordinators and the changing paces. I thought the Panthers turning operations over to Norv Turner was wild. We can talk about that after the
Norv Turner.
Yeah, I mean, you see the early dominoes falling, and certainly the draft's going to factor in. I don't think we know much about what's truly going to happen at the top because a lot of teams have options.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, and you're Cleveland Browns, and you can get like Minkah Fitzpatrick and Saquon Barkley, man, I would love to do that. And then just go ahead and keep Alex Smith for a couple of years, and go ahead and draft Mason Rudolph, in the late first round.
Are you saying that they should try to win for change? Really?
Yeah, well, that's why they got Dorsey.
Short-term fix instead of the franchise quarterback that hasn't materialized?
See, Dorsey's not an idiot, so I'm willing to believe that he's going to be able to get that team to respectability. But you do that, you bring in Alex Smith. So, because I don't think there's any question he won't be there at Kansas City anyway. So it'll be Mahomes next year. And then we saw a little bit of that because he was also, look, I don't want to blame Alex Smith for what happened last week, but fact is, you are the quarterback. You have to make plays. And he didn't. You
do, but I didn't blame him at all. I didn't even mention his name.
Yeah, I mean, he's like way down on, if you're looking at reasons why they lost, that's for sure.
Yeah, the three votes, the last one, my showdown theory.
All right, and then finally we got the Jacksonville-Pittsburgh game, this one being the early Sunday game, with the St. Minnesota Sunday game being the late game. And by the way, the 2 games on Sunday are both Battle of South-North. And so you've got the Jags off of that awesome win that everybody must have just been tuning in for, especially late. It was so exciting. 10-3 over Buffalo. So now the question is, what happens to Jacksonville now? And another situation where you do have the rematch, and where Ben Roethlisberger throws 5 interceptions. And this is the game that of course, I remember picking the Jags to win the game. But keep in mind in this game, because this is important, that if you throw out the 2 pick sixes by Big Ben and the 90-yard touchdown run when the game was over, with 1:47 left. The Jags had 223 yards of total offense. Blake Bortles was 8 of 14, 95 yards and an interception. So they didn't do anything except on defense, which is how they win games. So will Pittsburgh give this game away like they did earlier this season? Well, if Jacksonville wins the game, they will. And is that a possibility? Sure it is, because that's how Jacksonville wins football games. I'm telling you, I don't know how this game is going to go, because, I mean, I am picking Pittsburgh, but I wouldn't be shocked if Pittsburgh threw this game away, if Jacksonville played ugly on offense and found a way to steal the game, because I've seen Pittsburgh underachieve before. I've seen this story before by this franchise, but I'm going to pick Pittsburgh to win, and I'm going to say that they're going to find a way to avoid that. It is going to be 14 degrees at kickoff. Now, unlike Tennessee, which is used to playing in some cold weather, even though Tom Brady and the Patriots are much more used to playing in the big games and the cold weather, so they should be able to, as you were saying, as long as it's not raining, they should be able. It should be an advantage, you would think, that they usually take, because, hey, we've been here, we've done that. But this Jacksonville situation is a little bit different. And even though they're not a Miami team, they are a Florida team.
They are a Florida team that wants to play like they play in East Rutherford, though.
That is true. Yes.
That's their personality. To me, and again, I don't think weather's supposed to be a factor now. Like the wind gusts should be good, and it's only going to be cold, 14 frigid. I think the Jaguars can hold up in that. So for me, this would be take number 3 on the whether weather will be a factor of this. Obviously the Viking games in a dome. But yeah, I'm least concerned next out of the outdoor stadiums with this particular weather.
Yeah, I'm more concerned with the fact of the way the Jags have actually looked lately on the road. Now, it's not a playoff game; it's different, all that. But they have shown that they're one of those typical young teams that you get them on the road sometimes, and they just don't look good. And especially if they turn the ball over, they just don't look good. And for a while, I tell you what, for a while there, for about a good, almost half that football game last week, I actually thought Buffalo was going to win that game. I didn't like. Bortles was terrible. So he can't get away with that in this game. I can't imagine that again unless they have 2 more pick sixes. I can't imagine them getting away with it. And the problem is if you're a Jag fan, is I just don't know if Bortles can just snap out of it now. I don't know. I think he's in this kind of bad run he's going on, and his confidence is just not where it is. That unless that touchdown drive changes his confidence in this game and he gets off to a good start, and there you go. Okay, fine. But to bet on Blake Bortles to win this football game, I don't know how you do it. I just can't do it. I can't.
It's Blake Bortles not losing it for you. That's
yeah.
How you
Can you bet Blake Bortles not to lose it? Can you? Would you do that?
The 7.5 would say you got to get the half 7.5.
Okay.
Would say go Jaguars. But yeah, it's the same spread. I talked to Scott Cooley, a bookmaker, about this today for my preview on this game that'll be available. If you're listening, it's later Friday or early Saturday.
Okay.
But he said this is where, from an action standpoint, he said it's the least exciting game, and it's nearly the same odds they set during the regular season, and they were pretty tight then and pretty tight now. So people are on both sides. It's really going to be like how can Pittsburgh play from ahead to maximize the likelihood that Blake Bortles will have to throw and make a mistake, and whether they can avoid a turnover that swings the game so Jacksonville plays from ahead. It's really an intriguing game.
Yeah, look, to me, this is actually, look, I tell you the truth, if I had to pick a second game to watch, it would be this one, because I love defensive teams, so I am definitely intrigued by what the Jags are able to do, and I will admit this. I think if Jacksonville can find a way to beat Pittsburgh, and let's say Jacksonville got to play the Patriots, I'm not counting the Jags out, because they're so good defensively. If they can disrupt Brady, they can steal that game too. So that's why I'm kind of intrigued by this game. Anything can happen in this game. But look, Pittsburgh is clearly the better team, but are they going to give it away? Psychologically, that's the trick. Mentally, are they mentally tough enough to win this football game, whether it's close or whether they blow them out? I don't know if it matters either way. I don't think I'm gonna change my mind one way or another. To tell you the truth, I've already thought about it. Even if the Patriots win easy and Pittsburgh struggles, I'm not gonna change my mind for that. I just have to see the game though. If something changes my mind, what I watch, I still kind of like the Steelers to beat New England. As I said, I said Kansas City or Pittsburgh last week, so I'm still going with Pittsburgh. I wonder how that whole thing will come into effect here. All the nonsense, and I think as we talked about last week, I think it comes into it where it favors the Patriots, at least even just for 1 week, to show everybody how good they are and to beat up on the Titans. Now, I don't know if that lasts 2 weeks, but I think it may last a week.
Yeah, and as far as this game goes, Mike Mitchell already has that matchup going on, Pittsburgh at New England. So we'll see how Jacksonville takes that. I'm sure it's on their bulletin board. And then stuff from today. Antonio Brown went home ill, but Tomlin said he looked good all week, so he's expected to go. Artie Burns and Stephon Tuitt practice, so that defense is going to be, as healthy as it's been. Ryan Shazier's absence aside. New England, Telvin Smith and Paul Lovely missed time in practice this week. They should both play. Ditto with Jalen Ramsey. So, lace them up and may the first mistake win.
And by the way, Pittsburgh wins this game. I don't think they do beat Jacksonville based on how they normally win, which is with Big Ben and Antonio Brown. Le'Veon Bell has got to have a big game because the Jags thrive off of your mistakes with the quarterback like they did against Pittsburgh. It's their pass defense. You can run against the Jags a little bit. You have more success running the ball against them than you do passing. And that's what I think they need to do is establish Le'Veon Bell. Because look, in serious, if I'm Pittsburgh, my game plan, if I'm Todd Haley, my game plan is, hey, I know Ben is a gambler, but my game plan is I'm sitting Big Ben down all week and I'm going, I do not want you gambling this week. We are a better team than this team. I want to run the football. I want to play physical football with them, and I'm waiting for them to make mistakes. Because I'm willing to trust that even if we run, pass, I'm still confident that you're going to figure out a way every 2 or 3 series to make that big pass to Antonio Brown or to someone else, to Juju Smith, and we'll score a touchdown or 2. And if we do that and we don't turn the ball over, we're going to win this game because the Jags are not going to offensively score 14 points. They just can't.
Yeah, that's Todd Haley's preference anyway, which is why it's often trouble to lay points with the Steelers. It's bad spread team. But, we'll see. Again, it does become avoid those mistakes. The Jags, held the Steelers 3 field goals on their 3 red zone drives, and a lot of that is Haley. So, to me, I would say I'm leaning towards taking the points, expecting the Steelers to win and making sure that I have 7.5 instead of 7.
I agree with you. I feel the same way. I think this game more than likely is a Pittsburgh close win than anything else. So I'm leaning towards that. I definitely like the Patriots, like the Eagles to win, and like the Vikings to win. Not sure if I'm going with them to cover, but definitely leaning towards taking them to win and cover as well. So I'm going with the Minnesota-Philly championship game and Patriot and Steeler championship game. And if I'm wrong on one of them, to tell you the truth, I think I might actually pick Jacksonville if I'm going to take a freaky wrong pick. Why not? I mean, they're probably a plus 250 on the money line. So if I'm going to be wrong on something, that would be a good one to be wrong on, just on the money line itself. All right, so you've got which is the top game you're going to have available at Vegas Insider that you're going to be previewing?
Well, my preview's on the Jags and Steelers, so that'll be up. Top game of the weekend is definitely Saints Vikings. That's the one I'm most interested in. And again, I've got the Saints winning the NFC, so go Saints at this point.
Sounds good. I appreciate it as always, Tony. Enjoy the games, and we'll preview the championship games next week.
All right, Greg. Sounds good, man. Take care.
Thank you. All right, that's Tony Mejia, and that is going to wrap it up here. You can check us out on Twitter at PrimeSN. That's when we're available to let you know about when all of our on-demand shows come out on our website at ourlads.com. You can also check out our YouTube page and our iTunes page. By the way, that's on the Prime Sports Network, but that also has our library of Our Lads OFN shows for you to choose from. So there you go. By the way, now I know how rare it is, but if you are a tennis fan and you like brackets in tennis, with the Australian Open coming up, and there's probably 2 of you out of the listeners out there, we are going to have our bracket show tomorrow morning at 11:30 to preview the Australian Open. But hey, it's all about betting on the Australian Open and who's going to win, so we're going to have odds and all that kind of stuff and picks. So just figured I'd throw that in there. So for Tony Mahee, I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in to the Our Lads Football Radio Network OFN NFL Preview. Enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time.